So today's plan is this is our penultimate deep dive of the year. So we do have one more planned for December. But as always, we'll kick off with a bit of information sharing. We'll talk about some updates to the TED system that we've been working on, some new things that have come in since our last deep dive, which I think was back in June. We've got some new toolkits on the system. And that will lead in quite well because we have a lot of new coaching resources. And backed by popular demand, we've got our resident coaching expert, Mr. Ian Mills, who'll be talking to us a little bit about the coaching hub, which we've introduced at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals. And then we're going to move on a little bit to, I've called it nudging engagement activity, but we're going to look at the impact that nudge mechanisms to keep momentum with teams who are doing TED can have, and we're really grateful to have Harjit from Nottinghamshire NHS, who's going to be sharing a little bit about what they've been doing, and we'll share a little bit about what we've been doing at Lancashire Teaching as well. There will be a little bit of a time for a break. We'll see how we're doing for time. But then our collaborative discussion this month will be around the slides, active bystander training. And that's linked to some work that Claire's doing at East Kent as well. So I'm sure Claire will come in and share some of the things she's thinking around that one as well. Okay, so just to get us kickers off, we always remind you of our collaborative sort of ethos. This was something which was co-created when we first grouped together as a collaborative, when we first sort of launched TED into different organisations, and we co-created this. And the ethos that we really want to encourage through these sessions and through everything we do with our collaboratives is about being present and curious, being able to participate and share, listen and respect others, and be creative and solution focused. And absolutely we do that. I'm always really energized by these sessions, by the input that you have that helps us keep innovating with TED, keep it improving for you and for us as well, and most importantly our teams who use TED out there in your organizations. So first up is the information and updates sharing. So we do have a few system updates, some of which are in the pipeline and some of which are already live on the website. So I will share the website with you now. And some of you might have noticed some of these little tweaks that we've added to the website over the last month. So we've got new RAG indicators at the head top of your survey results screen, and we've also got different ways to look at your exports as well. So if I can just share my screen. Okay, can I just check, can everyone see that okay? Yeah, getting a few nods on there. So as always, my pharmacy technicians, my sort of test team that I use for this one. When you now go onto this, or when a team leader goes onto this, you will now get an indicator of where the red, amber and green thresholds are laid out. And we wanted to put that in. I think we get a lot of feedback from yourselves and from team leaders. One of the most frequently asked questions we get into our TED inbox is around where those thresholds lie. I think this comes back to what we were saying a bit before the session around how teams are motivated. And we know that some teams are absolutely motivated by wanting to move from amber to green or wanting to move from red to amber. So we wanted to make this really clear. So what we've done, our developers have added in just that bit at the top. So this reflects where those thresholds are set. So if anyone does ask you, they're on there, but anything less than 2.4 would be a red score. Between 2.4 and 3.5 is this amber score, and anything green will be 3.5 and above, and that represents a really good score in TED. The other little update, which you might have noticed, is when you go to your export, so the three little dots, I think most teams do this, they'll export it into a PDF and want to print off the results. But you used to just have one way of exporting. We've now got two separate options. And this comes from quite often something I taught with team leaders when we're doing TED team leader training with is how to manage the comments in your TED report. And I think sometimes there's a concern that if there is maybe one really critical comment, that it might derail the conversation, or if there's something in there that someone might have mentioned a name or something that has identified someone, that it might expose the anonymity of the survey. So what we've done now is added a bit of flexibility in there so that it is possible to download a version of the survey with comments, which is exactly the same as you got before. So your comments page will be on page 3 or beyond, depending on how many comments you've got. But you've also got an option to export the survey without comment. And when you do that, it will just export those first 2 pages if it comes up without the comments on the 3rd page. So if you're a team who you want to share this version of the report and then maybe summarize the comments so that you're not exposing someone who's mentioned a name, you can do that as well. Now, I think when you do this, it's always really important that you get across the team leaders that it's not about ignoring those comments. It's not saying you're disregarding those. It's just saying about how you present it back. And what I advise team leaders to do is perhaps theme up what's in the comments, think around what things are coming up time and time again that underpins the data, but keeping focus on the data within your discussion because that's what can drive that forward. We've got a hand up there. Is that Sean? Do you want to come in, Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Am I right in thinking, or have I dreamt this, that in the early days we could change the RAG rating ourselves and put what figures we wanted our RAG rating to be?
Good question. So if I come back to the main site, I'm logged in as a team leader at this point. So it is possible, but only at an organization level. So something, I'll show you the sort of team leader view, trust admin view in a minute, but you do get a button that says trust questions. So you can change those thresholds. Now, my advice on this is always speak with us about doing that. And I think the intention when we made that variable was that as we get more and more data through TED, we might recommend changes to those thresholds over time. So I think some of our intention over the next few years is to really analyze where those thresholds are sitting and think around whether we would recommend maybe raising the bar in some areas or lowering the bar. But yeah, it is possible to do that from an administrator perspective. Does that answer your question, Sean?
It does, but I think, like you say, you know, if you're getting a national consensus, then everybody keeping it same is a good idea, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I definitely advocate for that consistency, and particularly for those trusts who might be new to TED, I'd stick with those set thresholds to start off with. Sam, would you like to come in at that point?
No, just that our intention is to have some sort of research project on sort of the high level data where we can create a norm, you know, and have an improved perhaps RAG. But it does require a wealth of data in order for us to do that research project. So I think we're probably getting there now where we are in a position to do that. So I just thought I'd mention that that's definitely our intention.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, good question, Sean. Yeah, so those are the first of our updates. We do have some more coming down the pipeline, which I'll show you a sneak peek of a little bit later on in today's session. The next thing I wanted to show you in terms of updates since our last deep dive was in the TED Toolkit. So one of our updates to the previous deep dive was around, we've now got a new upload date column in the toolkit library that you get at the top. And when you come on this, you can actually, if you click that twice, it will show you our most recent TED tools that we've uploaded into the system over recent months. So you can see actually if our last deep dive was in June, we've an awful lot in there. Let me just expand that to 25. We've quite a lot that's come into the system since we last did this, and a lot of that has been the great work. I know Lindsay, you've been working on a lot of our new toolkit resources, some great new tools and activities in there, and Ian, who's going to be doing a bit of a presentation on our coaching hub a little bit later. A lot of these are coaching tools which align with that, so I'm not going to go too much into those, but to give you a sneak peek, lots of coaching tools in there. Sneak peek. Oh, here we go. Some of these. What's the best that could happen? So what now? What? And I know Ian's going to be going into a couple of these a little bit later in his presentation. One that links with our most recent lunch and learn on around building accountability and how team leaders can build shared accountability in the team. So this is one of our newer resources. If you've not seen that lunch and learn, it's on our YouTube channel, so do go back and have a look, or even signpost your team leaders to it if they're interested in having a look. But this tool guides them through why accountability is important and some mechanisms for how you can do that as a team leader. We've also got a resource now around compassionate conversations. This has been a big theme for us in our organisation, where we're doing a lot of work around encouraging teams and encouraging team leaders to be able to have sometimes described as difficult conversations around tricky topics, but be able to approach those in a compassionate and understanding way. So this particular toolkit has some scenarios for perhaps team leaders or teams to imagine what would happen in this sort of situation, what sorts of things might you need to consider. And the idea is that a team leader, or perhaps one of yourselves, might offer this out in a leadership session where you give the scenarios out to groups. They will talk through these different scenarios. And on page 2, we've got some recommended approaches of things you could say, actions you could take in that particular scenario. So it's around what sort of approaches would you use to look at things compassionately when it perhaps is a tricky conversation, a difficult situation. And just one more to give you an insight to, the other one is a driver questionnaire, where it's very similar to some of our Belbin tools that are on TED, but really it's a bit of a self-awareness tool, really, I think, for team members or for teams to have a look at to see what really drives us. So it's linked to the team purpose section in TED, but could also link to the working together element. If everyone in the team's doing this driver questionnaire and you sort of thinking about those different elements that really motivates and drives us. And what this does is help teams think around what are the key things that are motivating us, what are the areas which we need to be aware of, or that we want to align ourselves to. And also, I think when you get multiple people doing this in teams, it helps us understand the differences in the different ways we're all motivated in our teams. So another great resource that's on there, but with an awful lot that's come on over recent months. So I'd encourage you to dip in, have a look at those, because there might be some that are really good to maybe complement your own sessions, but also would be relevant to teams that you may be working with as well. Fab. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my slides now. Here we go. So next little bit of an update for you is just to give a bit of a shout out really to colleagues from our local area in Lancashire and South Cumbria. Earlier this month, we held our first in-person TED collaborative event for some of our local trusts. And we talked about a multitude of things, really, about how we've grown TED in our organisations, different team experiences that people had come across. We talked about ways different trusts are innovating in their support, and we also looked at opportunities for the future. So it was lovely to meet collaborative colleagues in person and have some really valuable discussions. on the impact that TED was having and opportunities to work together going forward. So just want to give a big thanks to everyone who attended that event, and also to encourage, if there's any other regions or areas that did want to sort of club together and sort of pool the knowledge around TED, let us know and we can explore how we can help support you with those sorts of networking events. We're always really keen with TED to encourage this cross-organisational working, because I think we're stronger together, and when we pool our understanding, knowledge, resources, our TED data as well, we can understand more around what are the right things to do for our teams right now, and how can we do that in a way which feels right in the current context, and that is perhaps working in other areas that we can sort of work on the back of what other people have done as well. Sam, would you like to come in at that point?
I was just going to say, if there's any trusts near the coast that want to have a networking event particularly, I'd be up for that one.
Absolutely, yeah. We're still trying to get some TED organisations in the Caribbean so that we can go on location, but here's hoping. Okay, so that's it from updates from me. So next, I'd like to hand over to Ian, who's back again for your second TED collaborative event. Welcome, Ian. And Ian, for those who don't know, is our coaching lead at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals, and I'll let you further introduce yourself, Ian.
I don't think I can do any better, Lee. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak today. Is everyone there? Can you, being a little bit of an OD practitioner advisor and as someone who's very needy, can we fire our thumbs up just to say we're all there, or see how we're feeling today now that we've dried out after the weekend? Look at that. Hey, look, I'm feeling better already. Right. Thank you very much indeed. Awesome, everybody. Before I start this as well, can I just make a point? I am making no assumptions here, folks. Okay, we've built on a coaching approach. We've built a coaching hub. I've done what I thought what was right as we worked through, both for the individuals and the organisations. But I'm not assuming that you good people out there don't know so much more about me than coaching, that you've not got a better organisational setup, that you've got more ideas than I have. So I've put my email address in the chat already, because I just would love to connect and learn and expand if I possibly can. And to get to be part of this TED sort of collaborative just means I can reach out a little bit more. So please feel free to stick your hand up, question me, tell me that you've done it better, tell me that you know more, because I will not take it personally. I would just like to learn. I hope that is okay. Thank you, Lee, if you've got the slides. Okay, so I'm just going to give you, if that's okay, a little bit of a background. And just as a sneaky tease, you might see that first slide that Lee's put up. You might see that our coaching hub is actually aligned completely to the TED sort of logos and branding. And that's been very, very deliberate from the start, because Lee and I and Sam and Lindsay completely agree that TED and coaching go absolutely hand in glove. So the background to this is that as a leadership and organizational development support to our organization, we have a good offer. Okay, there's not lots of us, but we think we've got a pretty good offer. Okay, so what we have is our OD advisor support to individuals, team leaders, senior leads, teams, etc., etc. We run ILM accredited courses at both level 3, level 5, and those in leadership for coaching. We run level 7 in leadership. We run consultant development programs at degree level. So we've got big access to those coaches those courses in house. We have our own 360 system, which means we don't have to go to the Northwest Leadership Academy one, which means that can be completely aligned to our appraisal and objective setting systems as well, which leads to staff engagement, which leads into staff survey, which leads into engagement and retention and development. So we love that offer. We've got TED, of course, and other facilitated sort of team interventions that we do. And then we had one-to-one coaching. And it was good, but we're pretty stealth. We go pretty much under the radar with our coaching. Part of the reason for that being there's only a small number of us, but also the fact is that we never really went big. We never really pushed it out there as being a real key link to our people plan, our priorities. Like I say, linked to engagement, retention, and ultimately better patient care. So ultimately, the bringing in of the hub was to start to have a look as to how we can expand our coaching approach across LTHTR linked to our priorities. Thank you, Lee. So what do we want to do? Okay, extend our coaching offer. Okay, through the accredited training of people who understand the current context. Really important that. Like your good selves, we're in a lot of debt. We're in a lot of challenge. We're in a lot of restructure. We're in a lot of change. Okay, so having people who we could get accredited and train up to be coaches who understand the context, even though they might not understand where the individual's working, was really important to us. We wanted to centralize and communicate and advertise our coaching so it was an inclusive offer. Our coaching has got to be equitable. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be consistent. It doesn't matter who you are. Okay, it needs to be inclusive. Our coaches will help coach and deal with anybody. Okay, I want to look at the hub objectives and our organizational priorities. Okay, patient outcomes, value for money, retention, folks. We can't even recruit people in. Okay, so if we lose people because we can't offer some coaching support as an intervention, we've got a gap, which means we've got extra work being done by other people. Okay, how do we centralize our coaching hub in line with our strategic leadership offer? Okay, and creating that links to culture and values and people. Okay, then we wanted to evaluate it. Our current approach, we couldn't evaluate it. So if you look at myself, I've done about 550 coaching sessions in 5 years. I know what people say to me at the end of it, but I couldn't pick up any organisational intelligence apart from what I got from myself. And we couldn't really evaluate themes, banding, areas, people, or people who weren't accessing and why they weren't accessing it. Thank you, Lee. Okay, from a strategic perspective, obviously before we invest any money, and we did this about 12 months ago, just before the lockdown, okay, of cash that is. Okay, we need to build on that wider evidence base. Okay, we know that if we embed a coaching approach in the trust, okay, it links to increased staff engagement, hence the link to TED. Okay, I think 35% of the people I coach are dealing with burnout. Okay, we wanted to deal with increased retention. We didn't want to lose those good people if we could put together a quick intervention. We do lots of work on culture here. Coaching absolutely sits hand in glove with the coaching approach, links to better feedback, links to empowering people, and links to a conversation that we often get with OD practitioners, which is how do I give difficult feedback? Well, one of the coaching questions is, why is it so difficult for you as an individual to give that feedback? Let's deal with that on an individual basis. Clearly linked to wellbeing, clearly linked to things like return to work from maternity. You know, could we link coaching into maternity, looking at people, how we give coaching before maternity, maybe on kit days, maybe on times on, coming back from maternity, when we float that, people think that's a fantastic idea, looking at return to works. And then absolutely, it's linked to those key staff survey domains of leadership, wellbeing, your team. And ultimately, would you recommend this as a place to work? You look at some of the My Manager questions, coaching massively fits in with those. Thanks, Lee. So what did we do? Oh, my slide shifts. Okay. We got Sam to brand it for us. We had a chat with Lee about a year ago and said, hey, Lee, if we're going to bring in a coaching hub, how do we bring this along with the strategic sort of thoughts for TED going forward for the future, as well as being able to underpin it within our organisation? And we already have, I'm sure most of you have got something similar. I'm not making any assumptions. We have an e-learning platform that's built by a company by Dynamic, and everyone accesses their training, their dashboards, our 360s, your appraisals from that particular location. So the view was, well, how do we build coaching in from there, and how do we make it as simple as possible? We know that our people are busy, so 2 or 3 clicks is probably enough that they want them to do, and we want to put it front and center of where they are. And what you'll see on the top line there is when our people log on to their e-learning dashboard, what they saw initially was dashboard, courses, profile, competencies, and more. And in August, we snuck on coaching, and nobody noticed. And that's when we tested the system through August. So the trained coaches that were out there, such as myself, Lee, and Lindsay, we were using this system to test it. So when you press the coaching button, Lee, what it then takes you through is to a coach. Okay, you can choose a coach, and all our currently nearly 30 coaches are listed within that system, and every one of them's got a profile. That's my profile that's listed on there. And that individual, when they press coaching, can then press Ian Mills, can then press request a coach. An email comes to me. I accept it or reject it based on whether I'm available or not, on my capacity. And then we then simply move on to the contracting stage of coaching. Okay. Really, really easy, really, really simple for people to use. In order to be able to get to this point, I needed coaches because there was 8 of us. Okay. So over the last 18 months, I've primed our ILM 3 in particular award in coaching. And I have taught probably 4 cohorts or 5 cohorts of 16 plus a ILM 5 cohort that are sat in there. And that has delivered, currently, there are about 28 coaches on the system. There are about 20 coaches looking to pass the course. There are 16 people sat on the October cohort to come. There's 5 on the level 5 cohort, and I've got cohorts in December and March next year to come. The appetite has been pretty big for the coaching qualification, linked to people's development, linked to them as a leader, linked to them being better at what they do in the workplace with their staff and not continuing to do what they've always done. We've also put on more developing a coaching culture, leadership bite-sized sessions. What I tend to find is that people who've been on that session and or being coached themselves springboard into the qualification. So the ambition is to have 40 to 50 coaches fluidly on that hub who are able to sort of be reached and able to be able to sort of reach out and support people across the organization. And guess what? When you pass the qualification, you get that badge. Okay, and everyone wants that badge. I'm getting people are ringing me going, how do we get that badge? And my email certificate. Well, you've got to pass a qualification and you come to me and I help you do it. Thanks, Lee. Okay. So again, what I wanted to do is pick up some of the best practice from TED because it's slightly more ahead of where we are with the hub. So you do like a badge, yeah, 100%. We're almost, it's like qualification drunk in the NHS, isn't it? Give me a certificate, I've got a master's, well, I've got 2. So again, we wanted to brand it like TED. Okay, we wanted to use the Teams channel as a mean of communication. So on the Teams channel, I've set up lots of resources for staff. I've set up examples of contract. I've set up all the feedback. I've set up every resource you could possibly do, linked from the ILM qualifications so that it is consistent with what people have learned on the course. And then obviously we're looking to build a community of practice across those individuals. And as we get the numbers through, that community of practice will be part of my role to manage. Lee. So it's really important. It's what we've kind of looked at this is once I've started this, it becomes like a cottage industry that sits behind and it constantly runs. So before launching the hub, I've done my coaching supervision course with Barefoot, and the idea was then how do we make sure we keep some consistency around our coaches and their training. So we automatically over the summer I put on sort of sessions for coaching skills, refreshers and QA. Contracted in ethics was a really interesting session to run as a CPD session that from the qualification really need going into quite a bit deeper. We talk about 7 degrees of separation. When you're an organization, even though we're 10,000, we're only 3 steps away from somebody else, knowing somebody else. And it's really, really important around that ethics, contracting, those confidentiality. And then the building of tools. So I've probably built about 30 to 40 new tools. So we're going to drip feed those through, and some of those I'll show you today with regards to sort of TED. And folks, coaching tools aren't rocket science. It's just sometimes putting a question set down in the most simplest format as we possibly can in order to be able to get people to reach where they want to go, either with their individuals or with their teams. Okay, thanks, Lee. Oh, that bottom bit, sorry, Lee, go back there. Apologies, one-to-one supervision and group supervision, my bad. Really important. Sort of guidance is 1 to 15 sessions. But if you've got newly qualified coaches, my role is to make sure that they can access me at any point in order that we can sort of debrief, download some of the sort of stuff in the session, but also to run some one-to-one supervision, so some group supervision, which is going to be really interesting going forward, and a really good bit of collaborative learning across coaches, bringing them together. Thank you. So, as we've said, The hub and TED, there they sit quite nicely with our LTHDR logo in the middle. I say, like I said before, deliberately branded together, deliberately put together, because when we have the conversations, and I don't know how you feel out there, folks, sometimes when people come to me, they'll say, I need to do a TED. And I look at them and I go, are you all right? And they'll go, no, I'm really not all right. I'm really not in the right place to do a TED. And I go, shall I tell you what coaching is? It's your safe place to scream. It's a place where you can come and not be judged. There's no jeopardy talking to me. I won't give you any advice. And they go, yeah. And after a couple of sessions, we're in a good place to do a TED. But actually, it's not always the right place at the right time. So when we discussed it with Lee, it was like, how do we make sure that we can support through coaching the hub and TED leaders prior to doing a TED, leaders facilitating during a TED, what the actions could be coming out of a TED, and how we might take that into individual one-to-ones post the TED in order to make sure that it actually cements towards, and someone put it in the chat before, or you said we did, so we've got a real sort of clear eye on what the actions for TED are. Thanks, Lee. Okay, so we started with some lunch and learns. We've started delivering TED sessions, joint TED and hub sessions across the organisation, across our sites. So far, they've gone down well. They've been different, and we've introduced and socialised some of the tools as well on those sessions. Cheers, Lee. Okay, what are the tools? I'm going to get really simple. It's my simplest and easiest one. You can use it from getting teams stuck in action or actually getting individuals stuck. And it literally is split your piece of paper into three. Okay, right where you are now on the left-hand side. And we did with this in the session. And they went, all right, okay, this is my problem. So where are you now? Okay. And on the right-hand side, we got them all to write, where do you want to be? What does success look like for you? What's your vision? Okay. Right, now in the middle, write down what's stopping you getting in the way. What's preventing you? What are your blockers? What are your gaps? And in the session, we all wrote it down and they all got everything done. And then I just said, give me the three things you can do to build a bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. Oh, is that it, Ian? I said, yeah, that's dead simple. That's all it actually is. And everyone at that session took that tool.
There's way too much at the minute.
Took that tool away and was able to use it really simple as a coaching tool. It's actually a question set, but we can bring it in to coaching tools with individuals and or with teams. And what we linked with that was, and the next slide, Lee, and the next couple is, if you make it really, really simple, you can use these with teams around the question set for teams. So bolstering that, we then got teams said, like, these are 20 questions you might want to ask in order to get your team unstuck from where you are now and get you where you want to be. So if you think about facilitating a TED, there may be an opportunity to find, well, these are the three things that we're saying that are blockers. This is where we've got to get to as a team. How do we co-produce our bridge or our statements to get over that bridge from where we are now as a team based on what our TED's told us to where we would like to be based on what our session tells us? What are we going to do? Here are the questions that we might use. We then, on the next slide, Lee, we then looked at, okay, so what have we found out in our TED? Okay, what have we found out? Really simple reflection model. It's not, again, it's not rocket science. What have we found out today? Now, this can be used as a leader or as a team. What have I found out as a leader today from my TED? What have I found out about me? So what does that mean to me? Okay, what were those emotional data points? What were those sort of information points that were given to me? And then literally, so now what am I going to do about it as a leader? Or what are we going to do about it as a team? So what now? What is the easiest reflection tool in the world? For those medics on the call, if you want to use Gibbs, please do, but it's about 4 steps too complicated for me. I like a what, so what, now what, and a simplified approach. And once you've done that, we can then build it onto the next slides. And then we got our people to sort of work out, right, what are the 3 things you can do and what are the 3 things you will do? Okay, and the 3 things that you can do are used often can be very personalized, and the 3 things you will do can often be very much in line with what I will do at work. So we help devise these teams and these tools, and we socialize them in the sessions so that we're able to look at people and say, okay, so what we've got our TED session. Okay, what are our issues? Where do we want to be? What's stopping us? How do we build our way over that? What can we do and what will we do to do that? As individual leaders, what, so what, now what? Really, really simple tools. And then we looked at how following the TED, linked to objective setting, linked to appraisal, linked to engagement, linked to development, linked to knowing your staff. How do we take that into a one-to-one approach? And that became the Me on a Page tool, which is just getting, and we got this with teams to do, get to come down at each individual before you come into your one-to-one, before you come to your post-TED. Okay, it goes over 2 slides, this, but just write down some notes for a start one-to-one. What gives you energy? Okay. What makes you unique? What are your successes and achievements? What feedback have you had? Where do you want to develop? What motivates you? What a great coaching question, folks. What motivates you at work? Not you make a great man 5. Okay, because that comes with a lot of guilt and a lot of complications for people. So we wanted to give enough tools to be able to say, hey, listen, we can help you pre-TED with coaching. We can help you during the TED process with regards to some tools, and we can help you post-TED. Now, going forward, which is the final slide, I think. What's our plan? Well, I still need to grow my coaching numbers because people want the badge, and if you don't want the badge, and it's a lovely design, okay, there's something wrong. So I'm hoping to have another 48 people on program by March next year. That's a significant number of people coming on our sort of hub. Lee and I are doing a TED and Coaching Hub TEDcast, a discussion video to sort of put out there and help. We've got different events planned for 2026. There's more resources. There's more way that coaching can help leaders embed TED. Embed the what's my vision for the next 12 months, link from your first TED to your follow-up TED to your next TED to make sure you keep your actions in line of sight. And we can do that through our events, and we're going to do that through increased TED and joint hub resources that, of course, we'll share with you as we go through. And I think the final slide, if that's okay, is any questions from anybody?
Sean, would you like to go in?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Ian. Few questions, if you don't mind.
As many as you like. I'll do my best.
So, the first one, you said that they're coming away with certificate, ILM fund. Where do you get your funding from?
So for the course, because we teach it, it only costs £115 for the ILM registration.
Okay.
So if you're from a nursing background, we can pull that down from, I forget the funding pot. I can't think. There's an actual particular funding. TPD funding they can pull that down from. The rest pull it from their own department. Because the course is 3 taught sessions for the 3, it's not a massive outlay time wise. So I can go into the details of the course if you want, but it's price wise, it's £115, and that's just the ILM registration. You don't pay for anything else because we're a teaching hospital and we can run it ourselves.
Okay.
They must have been trained to do that.
So releasing staff for one, for the training of the course, and 2, one of the reasons I'm asking this is we've struggled to staff that are clinical, doing the clinical day job, and then coaching as a addition. Really struggle to get those released to actually do the coaching, and it's seen as an easy opportunity by managers just to cancel and drag them back into the workplace.
So do you mean with regards to training or actually being a coach?
No, one's been a coach. Well, both really. One to come on the training and then to be a coach. So
if I can go along with that, we had across all our courses recently we had issues because our national mandated nursing coursing figures weren't where they should be, and we've been a massive push towards those and to reach where the national requirements. I do a lot of work in the induction, Sean, with regards to pointing out the requirements of the course. If you come on this course now, you have to go on the hub. The hub requires you to do a minimum of 6 to 9 hours a year. That's 1 hour a month. Okay, you can choose to pause your coaching, you can choose to reject. My point is at this moment in time to be able to give an overview and evaluation after 12 months, see where we're at and see what works. I'm currently not having any issues getting people to attend the course. Like I say, it's full. It's more than full, and it's going into December.
Fantastic. And you probably don't know at the moment then, but do you have an attrition rate or of people actually doing the training and then, oh, I haven't got capacity to be able to do this?
The same as every other course. I mean, if we run a course that's any other course, we get a 20% on the day beforehand. It's really difficult to look at the attrition. Some courses I've run are completely 100%, have a 100% pass rate. Some are at 50.
And I think it's a question more for you moving forward, and maybe repeating that question in a year's time. What has your attrition rate been? Because that's been one of Doncaster's experiences, DBTH, is that, yeah, we got the classes full and we trained 40 people through to be coaches, but at the moment we are down to about 6 functioning coaches because of, I think, the climate that we're in, and myself and Linda, we can manage his own diaries. We're in a very fortunate position, whereas other people have to get permission to actually do the coaching as an add-on for their day job.
I agree, Sean. And part of this for me is around my relentless zealot campaign into directors and execs around linked to our strategy, our priorities, our plans as to how this allows them to deliver their business. So it's a short-term pain of 1 hour or every other month or whatever to get these people back on track. And I think we're going to ebb and flow through it. I think you're right. We need to have a look at any attrition rates. But I think the approach is right. And it'll all be dependent upon the timing. And I think for ourselves, if we've got this in the right place for the organisational recovery, both from a financial perspective and from a reorganisation and restructure perspective, it's a really good must-have for the organisation to be able to deliver, to be fit for the future.
Thank you.
Go, Sam.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we've definitely got positive engagement with is the people who receive the coaching, the coachees, if you will. I mean, we did a little presentation, the amount of people, it's like a digital online or colleague presentation, about 250 people there or more. The amount of people that had written in the chat at various different forums, how much they benefited from coaching and things. So I think that is a really good start to getting people interested. And I don't know if Lindsay's on and would like to share, but I think when people then become training from a coach, they also can benefit from it as well from a personal perspective. I know Lindsay's told me many times how much she enjoys coaching, and probably there are some people who might even do coaching on their day off if they wanted to, if they're so inclined, to find different opportunities, because some people just really absolutely love being part of the coaching network and really want to give back and personally take away some enjoyment from it as well. But I definitely, what I see at the moment is the benefits that people are receiving from being coached is definitely out there, and we can see that coming through in the feedback, which is really positive. But absolutely agree, it is that continuation now in getting your coaches on the system as well.
Hello, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Ian, for sharing. I think just building on what Sam talked about, he talked about just this feedback provided. How do you evaluate the coaching sessions our colleagues have gone through? And I know this feels very logistical, but I mean, is it like for every individual that signs up to be coached, they would do that 6 sessions where it's 1 hour per month? Is there a guide around that? Because I'm trying to think about how much time someone who signed up to be a coach might need to dedicate to, for example, an individual they're supporting. And I think finally, we've talked a lot about how coaching could help with line managers who want, for example, lead on TED. Are other developmental areas covered? So if it's well-being, performance, confidence, is there a full range of, needs that are covered with coaching, or they're kind of limited to, say, TED, performance, well-being? Just curious to know how that plays out for you.
Right, let me pick some of those up. People bring whatever they want to coaching, whatever they want. It might be nothing to do with doing a TED that's stopping them. It might be something to do from a careers advisor that told them they'd never be a good nurse back in when they were 16, all the way linked through to sort of issues within the workplace or at home. So whatever comes out that's preventing them being the best they can within their working environment is what we will coach on. Traditionally, I coach about 3 sessions. It's a short-term relationship. I coach usually an hour and a quarter, usually 3 times, and we've got to the bottom of the issue at that particular point. Although if I've ever worked with colleagues in the private sector, they'll get handed people, because they're on a daily rate, for 10 sessions. Okay, so it's nothing's fixed. Okay, there's no one way to coach. There's plenty of ways to coach, and we'll coach on based on who we are as human beings. But usually there is a framework and a code of ethics to sort of follow. People will start with one issue at the beginning of a coaching session, and it'll be miles away the issue they want to deal with. We'll go through the levels of what they want. With regards to the coaches themselves, I give them the qualification, the City and Guilds do, the ILM do. I provide the supervision. They download their head to me with regards to their sessions and their practice and how they are in themselves as individuals, and I will support them through that process. So one-to-one sessions over a short period of time. The major topics that come out for me are perfectionism, paranoia, burnout, relationships, people who are newly promoted. Oh my word, do they need a safe place to scream? Okay, they need somewhere that's not the boss, where they can come and offload, come and discuss, come and not be given any advice, because the role of a coach is not to tell you what to do. The role of a coach is for you to find the answers within yourself, because I'm not responsible for the consequences of their actions. They are. Okay, which is a really powerful statement, really. I haven't got the humility, I've got the arrogance to tell someone what to do or tell them how I might have dealt with it in 2002. They've got to be able to deal with it from their context, from their sort of beginnings and understandings. Does that answer your question, or did I miss a bit?
Yeah, that helps. I mean, we have a small internal coaching pool, and I don't think we've got to that level of competence where, for example, we can have any topic discussed. We're kind of restricted into a few things, but naturally, hopefully, as our coaches grow and we support them with coach supervision, they probably can take on anything that comes up. I mean, like I said, coaching is really about asking the right questions and having people respond. Can I just check on this? You said on average it's 3 sessions, and each session is 1 hour. That's what you said.
So this is coaching according to Ian Mills. There's no coaching rule book about it. I coach usually for an hour and a quarter. The reason I coach for an hour and a quarter is just in case you need some decompression time, because you can put yourself through the ringer, particularly in that first session. I found in this trust with my style of coaching, we can usually have progressed within 3 an hour and a half. And people might, and then I'll say to people, hey, if you want a safe place to scream where you're not judged, you know where to come back to. And they'll ring me back 3, 4, 5 months later, going, Ian, I need to scream. And I go, okay, come on. And like I say, I've done 5 plus 550 in 5 years. Okay, so it's quite a lot of coaching experience within that. There's also times when I've coached people once a week for 8 weeks because they've needed it. They've absolutely needed it. So there's no one way to coach. I'm only going off my particular experience with here.
Oh, thank you.
No worries. Good questions. Thank you very much.
Fab, thanks everyone, and thanks Ian. Sorry, Lindsay, I jumped in before you had a chance to come in there. I don't know if you wanted to just share from a newly qualified coach's perspective how you found the programme.
Yeah, well, obviously everything that Sam said, I'd just like to reiterate all of those comments. Really, it was, for me, it's coaching within my role. I feel very privileged to be able to offer colleagues that support, and it's something that is the feeling that you get when you work with a colleague who comes to you, as Ian's quite rightly said, they are quite broken at times, and they have no clear direction. They think they want to go maybe down a professional focused route, but Sometimes it ends up going down more of a personal route, so you uncover those problems which you can work on with them to build confidence. And then from then on, obviously you can see the progress, you can see the work that they put in outside of the sessions, and the ones that really do put the work in outside of the sessions have tremendous, you know, results at the end, you know, and you just see this person come alive, and it is just the feeling that you get, well, that feeling that I get as a coach is phenomenal. Just to help that person, like Ian says, just over a few sessions it's just unbelievable. It's one of my favourite things, along with TED, of course.
That's lovely. Thanks, Lindsay. And yeah, thanks, Ian, for all of that. I think that really sort of illustrates the great work you're doing with the Coaching Hub. But I think it also really highlights the connections with TED and really shows how they are two parts of the same puzzle. I think that that slide you showed around the sort of splitting the paper into three sections. You've got where you are now, where you want to be, and sort of coaching is about bridging that gap. And I always think TED is, you know, your TED survey is just that starting point. This is a snapshot of where you are today. And then the process behind the coaching is really talking to your team around where do we want to be and what are the steps that sit in between. And it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And if anything, all of the tools within TED are just designed to help teams have that conversation in a way that works for them. And I do think there's such a lot of links, and we're really excited for the potential that the Coaching Hub has, because I think the more we can embed those coaching skills and the confidence to try coaching in the organisation, I think the more that will help TED's success, and it will help our organisation as a whole, because these are really important skills for leaders to have, but they're also skills which can be embedded across the team. I think if we can embed this sort of curious culture, this learning culture in our teams, where we're happy to ask open-ended questions and explore them together, then that can only help our progress and help teams navigate difficult circumstances as well. So amazing. Thanks, Ian. And thanks everyone for your questions as well. I think lots of food for thought there. Fab. Okay, so our next topic now is going to be on encouraging team engagement. So we mentioned before I started the recording, we did a bit of an icebreaker around ways to sort of influence teams. You might be thinking around staff survey at this time of year. But one of the things which crops up quite often when we have our coffee catch-ups, we're talking about TED, some of the challenges we face sometimes. When we think of the TED cycle, there are areas when a team's going through a typical TED cycle where they can hit road bumps. They can hit areas which maybe knocks their confidence and causes them to stall in the TED progress. And this might be from initially sending the survey out. How can you encourage more and more team members to actually engage with the survey, to fill the survey in? Sometimes it might be when maybe there comes a challenge from either your feedback in the TED or maybe your team discussion, and that can stop teams in the track sometimes because they're unsure what those next steps might be. Sometimes it might be difficulties converting that into meaningful actions, and that's where I know a lot of team leaders might come back to us for some coaching support to really sort of refine the thinking around what they're getting from TED or the feedback they're getting from their team. And I know sometimes, and I know some of you experience this in your own organisations, you can get teams to do that first TED, but then getting them to repeat with those follow-up TEDs can be a challenge for some teams, because I think sometimes in my experience I've seen teams try to put things off until they've got all their actions completed from the first one, and maybe having this perfectionism mindset that they want everything to be sorted, then their next TED results are as good as possible. So I think it's really important for us to think as practitioners how we can help this. When we think about the typical journey through TED, and there's a few steps to this, so we want teams to complete TED again and again and again. It's this continuous improvement process, but we know that there are dangers as they go between each one, and each time a team revisits TED there might be something a little bit different than the last one. But ultimately, the more we can encourage this as best practice, the more teams can navigate these challenges and come through them, the stronger and more equipped they are for the next cycle and to be able to come through it. So we're really really thinking about our role as practitioners in being able to empower and encourage, build that confidence, build that competence in our team leaders. And that's where our role comes in, really. Our role is to educate our team leaders about the TED approach so that they do feel confident in going into it. Our role is to build that confidence through support, through that energy we provide, through that providing clarity on how to approach it. We might also be there to advise on overcoming barriers when teams do stall or when they hit those barriers. What can we do to help suggest ways forward? But we want to keep encouraging that continuous improvement so that teams can keep going. So in our next section, we'd like you to think around how you can do that. And one really great example has come from our colleagues at Nottinghamshire. So I don't know, Sam, do you want to introduce this section?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really delighted to welcome Harjit today to share a little bit around the work that they're doing at Nottinghamshire Healthcare. As part of our client catch-ups and monthly coffee catch-up, Lee and I always get a chance to chat to clients, which is really nice. Sometimes we'll look at the data, sometimes we'll talk about successes or new things that the teams are trying, just really to kind of encourage. And last month I was really excited to chat with, I think it was last month, maybe a bit more, I missed some time, to chat with Alex and the team around things that they were doing. And so I asked if they wouldn't mind coming and talking to us today, which is really great. If we just look at the next slide, we'll just have a quick look at the data. One of the things that I have been noticing is just the journey that the team have been on since they started with TED. So if we have a quick look here, you know, we've got the pilot phase initially sort of between October and December, where they trained around 17 team leaders, and we can see that led to around 30 TEDs and around 211 people engaging in a TED, which really kind of, you know, shows that strong foundation that they started from. And then when I looked at year one, I was, you know, very, very impressed, quite frankly. I think you're giving us a run for our money in terms of the growth that we can see there. You know, they trained 241 leaders, and they supported around about 181 TEDs in their trust. Not supported, sorry, they'd had around 181 TEDs and sort of 1,700 people in their trusted engaged in a TED as well, which is incredible. And then what I noticed as well when I looked at the follow-ups, started already to get 10 follow-ups, which I think is really impressive in that first year. And what we can see again now is sort of, you know, even more team leaders were trained in this second year, taking them to 350 now. We've had another really good run of TED so far. And if we just look at the follow-ups and how they've increased, which is really good. So just, you know, in those first really just 2 years, we've got some really great numbers coming through. I am worrying that they're going to be doing more follow-ups than us soon, Lee. I think we need to get some rocket fuel. But what I think this does, it just really shows the real rapid growth, which is fantastic. And I think that's a perfect point really to hand over to you guys, just to kind of share a little bit around some of the work you've been doing around, you know, tracking and nudging, encouraging engagement with the teams, and now how you sort of layer in some recognition as part of that, another opportunity to drive participation and build momentum. So is it okay if I hand over to you?
Yeah.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for inviting me. And my manager Alex is on the session as well, so jump in anytime, Alex, if I've missed anything. So I'm Harjit Bailey, I'm the culture and engagement facilitator, and I just literally oversaw the project of introducing and launching TED, and to make sure it keeps running. It was interesting to start with, because I honestly thought it was something you just like get a platform, we pay for it, we get everyone signed up on it, and it just runs in the background. But there's a lot of work that you need to do in the background to keep it going. So like I mean, I'm impressed by the numbers as well, looking at it on screen. So I didn't realize that we'd done like broken down in the years. So I just get the total at the end. So that was super to see. So we launched, like it says, at the end of we started the pilot at the end of December, properly launched it in beginning of 2023, in the back end of 2023, and then we properly launched it in 2024. We had exec and our people, a CEO and a people and culture exec do videos, and we put them in the training. We got them invested and talked to them about what TED was about. So we had that buy-in from the execs, and so that helped with the launch. What we found was once we set up the TED, we did get lots of people book onto the training, and we had it once a month, so that they were quite full for pretty much the first year, and it had started easing off, so we started to spread out the training a bit more. We were already doing the nudge emails that Sam and Lee are setting up. So we're lucky to have an admin person who's a key part of the success of how we look after TED, is that we set up some templates that she would send out if once people have started the training and completed it. While she's in the training, she sends out the email to say thanks for doing the training. Then she sends all the resources out that are provided by the TED team, which has a template of what the email that they need to send out to colleagues when they are going to start the TED, to give them a heads up. The circle, the process of TED, so that it's simplified so they can see it visually, and anything that we can help with the resources to set them up. We always offer help to leaders if they need help with launching the TED, having private conversations away from the training, because some people don't have the confidence that others have, so they might need a little bit of hand holding. And we have a organizational development needs for each of our areas, a care group. So if someone does fall into a team leader falls into one of those care groups, then that OD lead will perhaps start the TED for them and then talk them through the process. But we never ever take over a TED and do it for anybody. We would always handhold and do it in the background of the leader, so we give them the ownership, and the ownership is not just for the team leader, but it's for the team itself. So we have changed our the way we talk about TED and how we advertise TED. It's not owned by the leader, it's owned by the team, and that's really important. So we send out the follow-up email after the training, and then if we monitor the numbers to see if anyone has started a TED after about 3 months. If they haven't started a TED, we'll send them another prompt email, and we'll ask them if they need any support. Again, we offer as much support as we can, and we have some people that will reach out, and we will again offer to set the TED up for them. We have a list of people that have done the training that haven't started a TED, which I'm going to find out why they haven't started a TED, so we can look at the reasoning behind that, whether it's because another team member's done it, whether it's they haven't actually been able to start it. Is it time capacity? Is it something they're not confident with? So we're going to tailor those questions around some sort of feedback, so we know where we're are we missing any support that we should be doing for these people that haven't been able to start a TED. And then what we found was we actually incorporated the TEDs with some of our sessions we have already in our programs. So our OD leads offer Creating Compassionate Cultures, a 9-month program. So as part of that, when they finish the program, at the end, they're set up with a TED. So every leader has to have a TED, and then they'll monitor that, and it drops into the data. But we mark it into our the title of the TED, so that we know it's come from that program, so that we can separate that data. And then we also, if we have any queries around people, teams struggling with cultures, we have a behaviours in practice that looks at trust values for each, setting trust values and what do they look like in a team. We ask them to do a TED as well, so that they can see where the issues are and where the strengths are. So we kind of incorporate in that. And the latest one we've incorporated it in was everyone's been offered a timeout day, and it can be funded only if they do a TED first. So they have to complete a TED so that they can get the funding issued to the team, so that then they can use the TED results as part of that team away day and a timeout day, and look at actions and how they can build the behaviours and cultures within the team. The latest thing I've started, and I launched it just last Wednesday and started yesterday, was we've started an award scheme within TED. So we've set up some bronze, silver, gold and platinum certificates to recognise where people are on their TED journey. So we're doing the bronze certificate if they've completed their first TED, a silver certificate if they've completed a follow-up TED, a gold certificate if they've done 3 TEDs, and a platinum certificate if they've done 4 TEDs. We have actually got 5 gold certificates to give out at the minute. So we had someone just complete their 3rd TED the other day. It was 4 last week. It's 5 now. So we'll be. I've sent all the bronze ones out. I've just got to send the others out today. And it helps. It helped us show where people are in their TED journey. So I've got a separate spreadsheet where we've got the scores, and we can see whether they've either stayed at the same scoring, whether they've gone up or whether they've gone down. So then the OD leads can pinpoint where they can help and offer more support if teams are falling down. But it doesn't mean that the score is gone down for. It might be a different scoring that's brought it down and one's gone up. So you don't really know. So that you need to have a look at the reports to see, what is actually going on in the teams. And we explain that to the teams when we speak to them. And we also ask for when they reach the gold and the platinum, we'll ask them to do a video or invite us to have a chat with them so that we can look at how they've done that and share their story across the trust. We do have cultural trailblazers for our staff survey results, where people have had all high green, all greens in their areas for the NHS People Promise, and we're going to start incorporating the TED results into the cultural trailblazers as well, where we do have the exec go and actually interview the teams to find out how they've got there. And I think that's it, unless Alex can think of anything else I've missed. But the nudges have helped a lot, actually, with the emails that we constantly pester people to do a TED. Sorry, Alex.
No, it's fine. Just to say that with the OD lead program, Creating Compassionate Cultures, we do a TED at the beginning and one at the end. So, and then we measure it. We obviously look to see how that's shifted. I've just put into the chat as well a copy of the certificate, of the bronze certificate, just to show you what that looks like. And there's backgrounds as well, and there's there's bottom there's also email signatures that Harjit has created, which is just brilliant. Seen the question in the chat about who the budget for the timeout day. It's something that was agreed separate to TED, about each team having timeout days, because it's something that's recognised within our organisation as being something that we needed to focus on. So the money has been agreed from our board to come from charitable funds. Please don't think that we're awash with money, and we are far from it. Yes, so it's come from charitable funds, and yeah, it's, we're not looking at oodles of money, so
not a lot at all. Oh, and sorry.
I was just going to say, what do those timeout days look like a little bit? What do they work? Because we've just set up the colleague lottery, so we're hoping with that we would use, so 50% of the profits will go to things that teams could bid for. So I'm just really curious, because that sounds really interesting.
It obviously depends on the team and what they need, but the ideal is that it's half a day of focusing on teamwork, and we do encourage people to, as you said, as Harjit said, to do a TED and then look at the resources within TED. We've got and then the other half of the day is really, we're asking people to have fun. because and just do something that the team want to do and want to focus on. So I mean, we've got a booklet around which we've collated, which shows how to ask for the money and some ideas on things that people can do. But some teams will go for just go to a park and have a picnic or something. Other teams will do other things. But as I say, it's the money is there. It's got to be used for certain things, so it can only be used for food or venues, I think. But it's certainly better than we've had before, and I'm happy to share the booklet that we've done. So
thank you so much.
If you have a question,
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. There is one question in the chat from Wendy. Are all your teams eligible to apply? So just thinking it could get costly if there's lots and lots of teams.
Yeah, I dread to think how many actual teams we've got. So yes, it is. I mean, just to put it in perspective, it's £5 per person. So, and obviously people go into multiple teams, don't they? So we make sure that it's it is £5 per person, not £5 per whichever team you're in. So as well. So, but I don't, to be honest, I haven't got the figures for how many people have actually accessed it yet. I think it's going to be slow. It's going to be quite slow to pick that up, because some teams were doing it without having that. So it's it's variable, but definitely some people do use it.
That's fab. And thank you both for sharing. And I think, well, the numbers speak for themselves. I think it's really amazing the great work that you've done there in a short space of time with TED, really, and how you've managed to get so much traction with it. And I think definitely those numbers of follow-ups is really encouraging that you're getting those teams to come back to it. But what I think it does show is the sort of benefits of those I call the nudge approaches, different ways that you can nudge and persuade and influence teams to keep going with it. And I think it just shows the impact of that work that you've been doing. Lots of really great ideas there. Like RJ, I know you're sort of chasing teams up at different stages throughout their TED journey. I think that is really important to try and keep that momentum, keep TED sort of front and center of their mind, so that it's not something they may be doing once a year and then forgetting about. I know that can be a challenge often for teams. So really finding ways of keeping it relevant, keeping it something that is that continuous improvement process for teams. But other things, the incentives you talked about, I love that certificate that Alex has shared in the chat. Really good to see, and I'm all for ways we can recognise. And as we said before with Ian's coaching hub badge, I think any sort of email signatures, coaching badge, certificates, things like that, I think NHS staff love that in my experience. And once someone sees a new sort of shiny new badge, everyone else wants to think about how they can get it and how they can get on board and get involved. So really love that. And it's also given me an idea for maybe a future development in TED, maybe some sort of achievement system that teams can get for achieving different milestones. But I think that's really great, that work that you're doing. So yeah, keep it up, and we're excited to see how you get on as you go forward as well. Thank you. So Fab, thank you. So I am conscious of time. We normally have a break at this stage, but I'm going to keep going because I know Claire, our colleague from East Kent, you need to leave a little bit early, so we'll come on to your topic. I did want to just very briefly sort of touch on other ways that you can sort of nudge that approach with teams. So some of the things we do at LTH, we've mentioned in the past, having a community, so getting team leaders to try and encourage each other to keep on board. Regular comms and events can help, things like maybe sharing some of your high level data across the organisation, comms about your team leader training, or showcasing what teams have done, things like social media as well. well can be really powerful. And thinking about different ways that you can use your TED data as well. And I know something that Arjit alluded to is using that user export that you get through TED to, you know, to drill through it, see which teams have done TED in the past, or maybe have registered with TED and not taken that leap to go forward, using that to sort of reach out, or using it to reach out and celebrate success for those teams where you are seeing high levels of activity, and reaching out to try and learn more about what those teams have done. So with that in mind, something that we have got coming up and something that I've mentioned in the past is our developers are currently working on some email automation plans. So I know some of you who've attended some of our recent coffee catch-ups, we've had some chats around this, around what would be useful in terms of if we could automate some of these reminders to take some of that workload off needing to reach out to every single team and make sure that you can consistently remind teams about the work with TED, or consistently nudge them when the next stage is due. So things you might want to consider, things like when the deadline expires, so team leaders log back in to see the results, when the surveys are 100% complete, maybe 1 month after the survey is closed, you know, have they had the conversation? Are they doing their action plan? 6 months check-ins, are they still on target? Do they need to think about doing another TED? And then definitely maybe 10 months down the line, they're coming up to the end of that first year with TED, reminding them to think about, right, when's the right time to repeat TED? So things like that we wanted to consider. So I want to just give you a sneak peek. It is still in development, but I wanted to give you a sneak peek into what our developers are currently working on with these automated reminders. So I'll very briefly bring this up on screen. So I'm now on, this is a vision, on your Trust admin dashboard, you'll now get this button that says automated email creation. You can see down at the bottom here. And when I click on this, our intention is to have some pre-made default templates in here for you, but you will get the option to turn any on or off at an organization level. So you can really decide on what types of reminders you want to have in your system. When you do create a new email template, you'll get different options. So you get options to have emails going out to certain groups. So these might be certain user types. Or if you wanted, you could even create specific groups by adding emails directly into this. So maybe if you wanted to send certain emails out to a cohort that had done team leader training at the same time, you could set those sorts of reminders up. So you can tailor this in the way that you want. What you'll also be able to do in there is trigger what happens when that deadline is up, and whether it happens before a set time frame or after a set time frame, and you'll be able to tailor what comes up in the body text of that email. So if you want to add a reference to who to get in touch with if they need extra support, or a link to your intranet site where you have information around TED, or other things that you might have available, you can tailor that into your TED system. And there are different tags, so you can personalize that as well by having things in there like the team's name, the team leader's name in there as well. So that's what's currently being worked on. As I say, still a work in progress, so it might look slightly different than this, but just wanted to give you a first-hand view of what's coming down the pipeline. Okay, so just coming back to my slides. And our next topic today focuses around this idea of active bystander approach. So we've got the behaviours we tolerate become the culture we create. And I know it's something at Lancs Teaching Hospitals which we've invested a lot of time and resource into, in helping to sort of raise awareness of the idea of being an active bystander, how you can proactively challenge things perhaps and make a difference from either team leaders or team members' perspectives. And it's something which we have developed resources in TED for. At this point, I wanted to just ask, is Claire in the room? Claire from East Kent? I know this was a question which originally came from you, and I know you're planning some work.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. So yeah. So do you want me just to give a little background of what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I suppose I was just going to reach out to the community and just ask for some best practice or good practice opportunity. So currently we have just developed a very short, it's a lunch and learn type of module that we do online with our leaders, and it's getting them to think about active bystander, why it's important, and sharing with them the 4Ds. I know that there is a 5D model as well, which is says document, but we're using the 4D model to help our leaders or individuals that are interested in how we like direct, distract, delegate, or delay unwanted behaviour. I just wanted to know what the community are doing in response to, like, because we've obviously signed up to the Sexual Safety Charter, and we're using some of our examples around that, but also racism and just really poor behaviours, that it gives people the confidence to speak up. So that's really what I wanted to just ask.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. And I think it is a topic that will be relevant to a lot of organisations. Oh, Alex, would you like to come in at that point? Go.
Oh, sorry, it was probably too soon. I was just going to share what we're doing. Is that what you wanted now?
Well, I'll just share a little bit about what we're doing at Lancs Teaching, and then I'll come to you first, Alex. But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I wanted to share a couple of things. We're doing something very similar, Claire, at Lancs Teaching. So we've had a few sessions that staff can book onto. We have run these monthly, and I don't know, Sam might update me on the sort of plans as this evolves going forward. But we've also developed some resources in TED. So we think some things specifically focused around the zero tolerance culture, which aligns really well with this topic. We've actually got 7 Ds on our model, but exactly the same as what you're saying there, Claire. And I like the idea of, focusing on, what are the sort of core things which we're asking staff to do. And our approach has all been around really trying to provide support and awareness for managers and teams on how they can do this, because it can be a difficult thing. I think it's often easier to be an inactive bystander. So I think a lot of this is around raising awareness of how important it is to be able to challenge in a positive way wherever possible, and do this in a compassionate way as well. So this has been part of our broader approach to culture. Some of the culture work that our colleague Kate Holt, who you might have seen on a previous deep dive, has been doing. But we've absolutely, again, like the Coaching Hub, tried to tie this in with TED, because it can be part of team conversations and what teams do. Because I think if you can sort of set the precedent and have that conversation at a team level of what is our approach to zero tolerance, and how can we be active bystanders in the way that we approach that. And I often think that conversation is one which might be different for different teams depending on the type of professional setting. So I think having frameworks like the 4Ds or 7Ds can help teams then have that conversation around what might this look like in practice for us, what are those things which we do want to challenge, and how can we be an active bystander when we perhaps see aspects of incivility maybe, or behaviours which we don't want to see. We want to have that zero tolerance approach too. So yeah, so on that, I did have a few questions to throw out, but I'll come to yourself first, Alex. But the questions there were, is this a challenge for your trust? Is this something other trusts are trying? As Claire said, do you have an active bystander offer, any sort of training? If you tried something different, what might that be? And generally, is there anything that you can share? So Alex, I'll bring you in at that point.
Sorry, I'm so embarrassed.
That's okay.
It was just to share. There's a programme that the Leicester and Leicestershire ICB have developed, and we're now part of a rollout of that offer that they've done, which involves a day training for active bystanders. There's a 90-minute session linked to psychological safety. There's a 90-minute session, awareness session around active bystander training. So it's really it's quite a comprehensive package, and I know we're rolling it out across the ICS, although I'll be honest, we're kind of quite ahead of other trusts with it. So there's something that we're just about to start start rolling out. And with question, is this a challenge for your trust? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it really is, which is really sad. You just wish you didn't have to do this and point out the obvious sometimes, but there you go.
No, thanks for sharing, Alex. And yeah, I think I'm sure the consensus will be across all our organisations that it is a challenge, and I think often it's when in periods of pressure, when people feel under pressure, teams feel under pressure, standards can slip sometimes, and even challenging from an external perspective when it's about sometimes challenging patients or other service users, and those behaviours can be really tricky sometimes. And I think that sort of reflects the climate that we're operating in a lot at the moment. So I think any support we can give our teams or our staff is really important at this moment. I noticed a few things coming in through the chat, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to bring a few people in. So Rachel, you've mentioned a microaggression tool. Would you mind coming in and just expanding a little bit on what that is and how you use it?
Yeah, of course. So we've got Bo, our head of EDI, and Bethan developed this tool. So we kind of got some posters, I think they're on like everywhere that you can see, on the back of the toilet doors, on notice boards, and in terms of where they can go. And there's kind of, yes, a report, but there's the preamble to it in terms of explaining what it is. Like you say, I think someone just mentioned, you know, sometimes it's not necessarily ignorance, it's just a lack of awareness and not necessarily realising that everyone's got different things that they may be either sensitive about or that may be offensive, you know. So it kind of goes through all that and explains it all. And then the way that the reporting goes, it's kind of goes through to them. It can be done anonymously because obviously some people might not necessarily want to have their name attached to it, but they can also declare, you know, they can put their details on there if they want to be contacted to discuss about it. It's not been, I think it only launched July, August time, but I think the understanding or the thought behind it, sorry, was that actually then we could have a look at it even in terms of, you know, different care groups, different areas, and if there's a pattern in terms of how many are coming through and whether there's something then that we need to do some targeted support, awareness sessions, training or anything for particular teams. So yeah, and then we had a taste at the leadership forum that we run maybe about a year ago now, about the active bystander training. I had to go, so I didn't see it all, but again, Bo's been successful in actually getting that rolled out, so we've got quite a few dates all the way up until next year. I think it's an online session, I think it's about an hour and a half, so obviously it's easy then for people to kind of, yes, log into. It's not like you've got to get to a particular site, because at Sheffield Children's we've got quite a few. Yes, we've got the acute site, but we've got a lot of surrounding ones as well. So then it's easier for people then to be able to log on. I need to log on and do it, sign up to do it, but we've had kind of like a little bit of a taster. And then me and a medical HR business partner, we've been doing some training for different groups. So we started off with the medics. A bit of an issue was identified within there, so we've kind of pulled together a bit of an acceptable behaviour at work presentation where we kind of go through, and some of it is just about creating awareness, because people don't realise actually what you might then see is this infamous banter in terms of what you might then see as banter actually is offensive to other people or really upsetting and that sort of thing. So we've gone through, I think I've done it now for admin teams, we've done it for the nurse management teams, so yeah, and so it's kind of going out that way, where we then also obviously reference the microaggression tool that we've got, and we have borrowed a couple of videos from, I think one's a university, I can't remember where the other one is, around active bystander and the, I think is a 4Ds in the official one, well, in that one, and there's another one just in terms of, I think, making people aware, so it kind of has people around disability, one about a trans individual and what they're being referenced as, one around, you know, jokes about someone. Sounds awful when you say jokes about someone's race. I mean, in terms of someone makes a joke around, oh, what have you got in here? Is it a bomb? And so it's all these sort of things that actually I cringe every single time I watch it. But I think that's then quite powerful actually then when people do see that and actually just, and they're not like massive things. And I think that's where it's quite powerful, the fact that it's just in daily interactions that you may have with somebody. Yeah, and we also borrowed that. I can't remember where that one's from. Don't know if they're both universities. So we're just using that at the moment, just when we're going out to train people. Sorry, I'm waffling on now.
No, that's wonderful. Thanks, Rachel. And yeah, great to see that there's such a lot of appetite for it. And I think it shows how much it's needed when there is a lot of appetite to uptake those things and that people are booking onto those sessions. I totally agree with you that with your sentiment, it's about raising awareness of it, and things like the posters, like the videos that you mentioned, can just help people think twice about things. I think sometimes I think people don't recognize that these things are going on because they are perhaps an inactive bystander. They're not sort of recognizing the sort of ripple effect that some of these things can have. So I think things like the videos that you mentioned can really help to change people's perspective on, that topic of banter comes up a lot of, what actually banter can mean when it's not taken in the right way, or when it's inappropriate.
Yeah, I think the active bystander is good as well, because I think normally you kind of think, or people's perceptions may be, actually, if you see something, you've got to tackle it, or you've got to. So I think and some people just aren't confident with that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I think one time, it's totally different off the topic, but where I used to work at a previous place, obviously it was no smoking, and me and my colleague challenged somebody who was on site, and the next thing you know, he was kind of following us through and having a go, and I was like, I didn't expect this. I just wanted to tell you to stop having a fag. But so I think then that's why the active bystander is good, because actually you don't necessarily need to do that, and it gives people actually other options, and that's okay. You're not being, perceived as a wuss, or you should have done this, or you should have done that. You've done what you felt able to do during that situation, and the individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about that awareness, the more we can get that awareness across the organization, the more that can then have an impact on the organizational culture. And when we talk about that topic of zero tolerance, what is a zero tolerance area? And we're empowering each other in the organization to feel able to challenge inappropriate behaviors, or things which aren't acceptable to us. But I think coming back to some of the resources which we put in TED, I think the ethos of those is very much that it's important that teams discuss how this is relevant to their environment, because we are so diverse in NHS organisations in terms of the job roles, the ways that we work. I think it's really important that teams see how they can address it in their own context. So absolutely, we encourage that through TED. Sam, did you want to go in?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said around zero tolerance, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges in our trust, because I think what pushback we get sometimes from staff is, but we're not zero tolerant, because we will still treat patients who speak that way, or do you know what I mean? Or they don't see zero tolerance playing out that way. And I think that's sometimes where we lose staff's engagement with campaigns like this, because they just don't see it acting out that way. And if a member of staff has been rude, their expectations are that they should be held to account, and it doesn't always play out that way, or they don't feel like those issues are addressed in that way. And just some of the other things that we've been trying as well is linking to staff survey a little bit, is Kate reached out to a number of teams that seem to flag on specific questions that link to either speaking up, in terms of we'd seen a dip in their confidence of speaking up, which is a big part of the active bystander work, and also any areas from the sexual safety questions that seem to be flagging. We did some outreach and actually went to the managers in those areas and said, are you aware of this data? Is this something that you've noticed yourself? Is this something you want support with? So we've done a lot of outreach work specifically related to those, and like you said, lots of resources. We've got the TED resources around sexual safety, culture conversations as well. So there's a huge wealth of things that potentially could support a trust in building a campaign or work in this space. And the other thing that I just thought I'd say, approaches that we've tried. I am running a civility session at the moment with a particular area, And one of the things I've done is I've done follow-ups after that. I've flagged in my diary just to send out some short, sharp emails, maybe every 2 weeks. Because one of the things I think sometimes happens is you do a civility session, or you have these training sessions, and then it's what Ian said earlier, the so what happens after that. So I've created just 2 or 3 emails that I follow up on 3 weeks later. How's things going? Have you noticed any changes around civility? Here's a quick video just to recap on some of the key points and just pointed them, because I think that just takes me 2 minutes to copy and paste an email to different people. And I'm just wondering if that would have an impact in terms of sustaining their awareness for longer than, oh, I went to that session, I've ticked that box, I attended, and is it actually happening? And I've got another set of emails that's to the leaders in those areas around, where have you seen improvements? Where are you seeing perhaps you're still maybe not addressing those issues? And just to keep the conversation going. And I'm going to then file that away as a blueprint, and if I like it and I do think it's having an impact, maybe roll that out in any kind of future sessions that we do in that space.
Thanks, Sam. And I can see in the chat lots of organisations that question around, is this a challenge? I think everyone's sort of agreeing with that, and lots of people coming in saying they do have their own active bystander sessions at Greater Manchester, at Blackpool, Serona. James mentioned about the demand outstripping supply. Can I come back to you, Claire? Does that help with what you're doing at East Kent?
Absolutely, yes. I just realised actually our EDI team are also doing some work on active bystander, but yeah, there's some really good stuff in here that I think, yeah, we've just got to try and strengthen what we offer.
Fab, thank you. So
thank you.
Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. And what I would say is if anyone has anything that they'd be comfortable sharing, do let us know. If you send it through to us centrally in TED, then we can circulate it amongst our collaborative, because it does sound like there's a lot of resources there that we're creating and a lot of common ground. And I think some of that are things that we can put in TED, but obviously TED needs to be quite generic because it goes out across lots of different organisations. But anything that we can share that you can perhaps tailor to yourselves, we can share some of what we do at Lancs Teaching. So I'll put that in the update following this. But if anyone does have any resources that they'd be happy to share, do send it through to us and we can forward it on to Claire and any of yourselves who might benefit from that. Thank you. Okay, so we've not had a break today, so we'll wrap up a little bit early, but just on to the final bit. First of all, thank you everyone for contributing to today's session. I think it's been really good, some really good discussions, really good questions, and we've explored some areas which seem to be common ground for us all, which is always really good. As always, we would love to have your feedback, so I will, if you want to scan the QR code, you can. I will share the link to our feedback in the follow-up email from today. Let us know if there are any other topics. Like we said, Chloe came to us with that topic, so it's something that we can discuss in these, that you can put out to the collaborative and we can work on together. But just to sort of signpost you to our next steps from today, as always, we'll collate everything from today. I'll share the video recording, which will be on our YouTube channel. We'll share the active bystander resources that we have, and we will be arranging client catch-up meetings in the not too distant future, so we'll be checking in with you and how you're doing. Just, I guess, reminders for you all. I'm sure you don't need reminding, but think around where TED sits. I know staff survey will be at the forefront of everyone's mind at this time of year, but it's often a time where you get asked that question around TED, where teams are saying, well, why should we do TED when we're doing staff survey? And often it's around really positioning them as two different parts of the same solution, but really thinking around TEDs for us as a team, staff surveys about feeding back to the organisation. So think about that and do let us know if you've any questions that crop up that we can help with. But finally, just continue to engage, share your learning. We've some coming up with some coffee catch-ups coming up. So as always, we love to see you at those. Those are more open sessions where we can discuss any topic that's relevant to you. And I think our next one's on the 7th of October. Reminder, we've no lunch and learns over the next couple of months because it is staff survey time, so it's we want to give you that extra space, and we'll be working on staff survey on our own trust. But our next deep dive will be on the 19th of December, so just before Christmas, and we'll do our annual review with you, share some of the data and things we've learned throughout this year. And just an important reminder, you hopefully you got the reminder through last week, but there is some planned maintenance with the TED website as we update. Our developers are moving TED to a different server, so it is going to be down for a day on the 30th of September. So if you or any of your teams need to access a TED report, please try and do that before 5:30 on the 29th of September. And then we have been told by developers it may come back online a little bit earlier than 5 p.m, but we can't guarantee anything. So if you are planning to use TED in any capacity on the 30th, please download your resources in advance. But if you do get any problems on that day, just get through to us and we'll help in any way that we can. We'll keep things ticking along. But it's all in the name of improvement. We're pleased to be adding new things to the website. So really great to get those on board. So thank you everyone for contributing, and I will wish you all well and hopefully see you again soon. Thanks everyone.